Welcome back to another Telltale Books video. This time, talking about one of the great modern horror novels, Salem's Lot. I recently read this in this edition. This is the Barnes & Noble leatherbound. I did this as a buddy read with Samantha from at Bound and Tagged. Seems like I read everything with her these days. She's a great person and a really good friend, and I enjoy doing these with her. Anyway, a little bit about the edition before I get into the story. This is the Barnes & Noble leatherbound edition. You can get these pretty inexpensively at Barnes & Noble. I believe this retails currently for about $28. And it's his first three books, Carrie, The Shining, and Salem's Lot, in a beautiful edition, great graphics, really good binding. It is hardcover leather bound. It has, well, it's probably pleather, not real leather. It has a ribbon bookmark, comes sewn into it, and it sits open. You know, these are books like this are too heavy to be, books like this are much too heavy to be holding them like this or like this and reading them for any period of time. So I like it when a hardcover book will lay open. I think this is a sign of quality. I think Barnes & Noble has done a great job. And they consider these collectible, but of course the price range is way below what you would pay for collectible books from other publishers, similar books to this. I mean, if Suntop ever did Salem's Lot, first of all, you would get a dust cover, not a nice printed on the cover. And second of all, they don't do the sewn in ribbons. They give you a paper bookmark. But otherwise, Suntop would be definitely better quality, better illustrations, better typography, better paper. But for the money, these Barnes & Noble editions are really good. I've got this. I've got my copy of Dune, or one of my copies of Dune is the Barnes & Noble. I've got Dante's Divine Comedy in a Barnes & Noble book. And I have The Iliad and the Odyssey. I liked the Barnes & Noble edition best over all the others that I was looking at. And so I bought that one. And I really like these. I think these are excellent books. I hope Barnes & Noble can see fit to keep doing more of them. And they've got quite a wide selection. They've got books like Foundation Trilogy and the original Star Wars trilogy and Hans Christian Andersen and the Bronte sisters and all those kinds of books. So you can get a great selection. So on to the story of Salem's Lot. To try and do it justice is going to be difficult, and I do want to avoid any kind of spoilers. I don't think I'm spoiling much when I tell everybody it's a vampire book. It's been around a long time, and a couple of TV movies have been made. They're making another theatrical release this summer. It's pretty well known that this is a vampire tale. And it's pretty close to Dracula. There's a weird guy comes and buys an old house, an old mansion on a hill that has a checkered past. And the weird guy is only working for this other guy I'm terrible with names, that is the actual vampire, and he's coming after the first guy. I think his name was Straker. After he paves the way for the vampire to come into this small town in Maine called Jerusalem's Lot, also shortened to Salem's Lot. And so they come in, and this guy secures the real estate property, very much like Renfield in Dracula. And, pretty much paves the way for this vampire to come into town. So then things start happening. People start disappearing. A couple of kids, I think, are the first ones to disappear, and a dog. They find the dog dead, stuck onto the iron gate of the cemetery. And these two kids disappeared. One they find, and he's in really bad shape, so they put him in the hospital. The other one they can't find until he starts showing up, floating outside people's windows. He's definitely been turned into a vampire. And things kind of cascade from there. And there's a writer and a priest and a young boy, and if I recall correctly, the cop, that are all trying to defeat the vampire. And there's a guy that's very much like Van Helsing, knows, is advising everybody what to do. But the young boy he's read all the vampire stories and knows all the traditional vampire lore. And that's the thing when you read this book. This is like Stephen King chose to. It's like King had this great passion for vampire horror stories, and he wanted to do a novel that pulled together all of those traditional vampire stories, the birch stake, the crosses, the sunlight burning them having to sleep in a coffin that has dirt from their native land in it. All those traditional vampire stories. And of course, like I say, it very much follows the plot of Dracula with, the vampire coming into this area and buying a house and all that. Except that he doesn't just go after two women, he goes after the whole town. And, gradually people in the town are being turned. It's an extremely fun book. It's, if you love vampire stories, if you love Dracula, this book is extremely fun. This isn't Twilight vampires. There's no sparkling in the sunlight. There's no love story. There's none of that modern vampire stuff. There isn't even the kind of thing like you get from Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. This is very much old-time traditional vampire story. So it's extremely well done. It's not just like a pastiche, or it's not satirical. It's not so much like Dracula that it seems like a ripoff. It's not any of those things. It's an original story, well thought out, with really engaging characters, a cool setting in this town. Really great descriptions, really great action. The story keeps rolling along, really fast paced, doesn't bog down, easy to read. It's a long book, but you don't even notice it. It flies by. It's a great novel. I've yet to actually read Dracula. I only know it from the movies, but it very well may be, because it's more modern, it very well may be better than Dracula in your opinion. I don't know. It's definitely one of the best horror novels, and of course I've only been getting into horror the last couple of years, and this is only my fourth novel by King. I also read Night Shift, his short story collection. I've been loving everything I'm reading. I'm definitely a Stephen King fan now. This book is definitely, I don't think it's my favorite. I think The Shining is still on top. But I love this book. It's a top tale for sure. And a recommended read for anybody that likes old-time horror stories, vampire stories. You got to read Salem's Lot if you haven't read it yet. I might be the last person on the planet that hasn't read it, but if there's anybody out there that hasn't read it yet, I'd say go read it if you love vampire horror. If you love traditional vampire horror. If you love Twilight and don't like the old Bela Lugosi stuff, then you probably won't like this. But if you like a creeped out, weirdo, monster vampire. Salem's Lot gives that and then some. That's really all I have to say. It's a very well written book, very well put together. It has stood the test of time. I don't feel it seems dated at all. Except of course anytime you go back like before 1990 and you have stories where there are no cell phones and television sets still have rabbit ears, there's you got to understand a few things about the changes our society has gone through since then. But aside from things like that, I don't think in this book you really even notice those things. You're in a small town, you're not in the big city. So I think there are rural areas still where a lot of that technology hasn't reached very much. And I think it still feels like our world. It doesn't feel like it's describing a time long past. So that's all I have to say about Salem's Lot. It's a great book. And with that, just got to remind you, like us, subscribe to us, tell your friends about us, share us with people, leave comments. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me what kind of perceptions you've had. Maybe I missed something that you picked up on, and I'd be interested to hear those things. Tell us those things. Also check us out on Instagram and Facebook and our own website, telltalebooks.com, where I have been working on putting bibliographies of many, many of the authors that we touch upon. I just finished entering Robert Heinlein. I am still working on Stephen King. I've got to start on his bibliography. Lots of other authors are in there, like Asimov and Clarke and Theodore Sturgeon and Robert Bloch and Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm adding to it constantly, working very hard at building that. So check that out and come back and see us again. We'll have more of these videos, more great books to talk about. And I think you'll enjoy what's coming up. Till next time. Bye.